anytime you want it, you can find me living right between your eyes. Oh, I think I'm home. Oh, I think I'm home.
Today on Cook's Country, Julia shows Chris how to make the ultimate one-pan chicken and vegetables. Then Adam reveals his top picks for kitchen shears. Next, Jack challenges Chris to a tasting of canned tomato soup. And finally, Aaron uncovers the secrets to perfect chicken chimichangas at home. That's all right here on Cook's Country. Cook's Country from America's Test Kitchen is brought to you by DCS by Fisher & Paykel. America's cooks rely on innovation and culinary precision. DCS by Fisher & Paykel, offering premium indoor and outdoor kitchen appliances. Chef's Catalog, offering kitchen products for home chefs and cooking enthusiasts. chefscatalog.com. And from Valley Fig Growers, imagine the possibilities with California figs.
From our kitchen to yours. In the Kitchen with David on QVC, a proud sponsor of Cook's Country and home cooks everywhere.
I have a great idea. Why not go home tonight and roast a chicken with cut-up vegetables? Well, it sounds like a great idea, but the bird has to spend a long time in the oven to cook the dart meat. A lot of juices and a lot of fat come out. You turn over the bird, and you can see it almost gets stewed at the bottom. And of course, then you have the veg, which are sitting in a sea of schmaltz, of fat, and you end up with really greasy, inedible veggies. So let's go into the test kitchen with Julia to make a great recipe for one-pan roast chicken with vegetables. So I have no doubt you can do a better job than that.
Absolutely. Right. This is one of my favorite meals with chicken and vegetables that come out of the oven at the same time. So we had to carefully choose the vegetables, of course, that could cook at the same rate as the chicken. And those are heartier vegetables, such as carrots or parsnips. Potatoes did quite well. Brussels sprouts actually did quite well when you cut them in half. Shallots did really well if you cut them in half. So heartier vegetables that can withstand a good 40 minutes in the oven.
Okay.
And so when cutting the carrots, you want to cut them into sort of rustic 2-inch lengths, and you always want to cut the thicker part just in half so it's at the same girth. So that's 12 ounces of carrots. And here we have some Brussels sprouts, again 12 ounces. And sometimes this part is a little bit brown from the supermarket. You trim that off, peel away any leaves on the outside that are blemished or discolored. And then we're just going to slice it in half through that root stem end so that it holds intact. Red potatoes did really well. We're just going to cut this into 1-inch chunks. And again, that's 12 ounces of potatoes. And this is half a pound of shallots. And they roast up really nicely as long as you slice them in half. Now we're just going to combine it all, toss it with a little oil so that they can really roast, and a few seasonings. I'm going to toss it with a tablespoon of vegetable oil. And to this we're going to add 6 cloves of garlic. Fresh herbs went a long way here to giving everything a little bit of life. So this is 2 teaspoons of minced fresh thyme. This is a teaspoon of minced fresh rosemary. Teaspoon of sugar, which of course helps the caramelization of the vegetables in the oven. And then finally, just a little salt and pepper. This is 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt and a 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper. And we're just going to toss these all together, get them all well coated. And now what we're going to do is make a little herbed butter to brush over the chicken, which not only adds flavor, but helps the chicken skin brown in the oven. So this is 2 tablespoons of melted butter, 2 teaspoons of minced fresh thyme, and a teaspoon of rosemary. This is a 1/4 teaspoon salt and a little bit of pepper.
Okay.
Just mix this up and set it aside. And now we're ready to tackle the main attraction, the chicken. And of course, a lot of recipes tell you how to roast the chicken whole, upside down on its side. But the best way to get it done at the same time as the vegetables is to cut it into pieces. So the first thing you want to do is cut off the wings. And in fact, the wing joint is pretty far in there. So I almost feel like you have to slice in a little bit to catch that joint. And then you can slice down through.
Okay.
And we're not actually going to roast these, but you could save them for stock or throw them in your freezer along with the backbone, which we obviously won't use. Now, to take out the backbone, you could use a sharp knife if you have one, but I think it's almost easier to use scissors. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just cut up one side of the backbone.
It's also a lot safer. I found with a knife they can slip. So.
Yeah, the chicken skin is pretty slippery. And you can just cut that backbone right out. The only thing holding the legs onto the breast is skin, so it's pretty easy just to slice them right off. And of course, this is a thigh and a drumstick, and the easiest way to separate those is that line of fat between the two. And if you cut right on that line, your knife should just slide right through the joint. So I'll put these pieces over here on this paper towel, which helps get them dry and get rid of any excess moisture before we layer it onto the sheet pan with the vegetables. And now for the breast, we're going to cut this into 4 pieces so they're relatively the same size as the thigh and the drumstick. And of course, the first slice is right down the center of the breastbone. And then right to the breastbone, you got to do a little heel of the knife snap through the center action, like that. And now we're going to cut these pieces in half. And now I'm going to cheat a little toward the thick side so that they cook more evenly. And there you have it. Chicken cut into 8 pieces. Put the paper towel on top so we can pat it dry. And now I'm going to go wash my hands. Our vegetables, our chicken, and our butter are all ready to go, so we can assemble it. Okay. And we're going to use this sheet pan, of course, because it's got a nice wide surface area, allows for good browning and evaporation of moisture.
As opposed to a roasting pan with deep sides.
That's right. Okay. So we're going to first dump all the vegetables onto the pan. Given this mixture of vegetables, the Brussels sprouts need a little extra protection. They tend to brown a little bit more quickly than the others, but that was easily remedied when we sort of piled them into the middle of the baking sheet so they're a little bit more protected. And the same thing goes, we found, for the chicken. The breast meat, of course, cooks a little bit more quickly than the thigh meat. So what we're going to do is we're going to put them in the middle of the baking sheet so they have a little bit more protection than the thighs and the drumsticks, which we're going to put on the outside. So now we're just going to brush the chicken with this melted butter mixture. All right. And now one thing about oven temperatures, we tried different ones during the testing of this recipe and found that higher oven temperatures worked much better. So we're actually going to roast this at 475 degrees. Yeah, pretty hot. But what that does is make sure that the skin gets really crisp, and of course that lowers the cooking time, so this will only take 35 to 40 minutes.
Now, one of the big problems of this recipe is that usually there's a lot of fat and juices coming out of the bird onto the vegetables, and they're really unappealing by the time everything's roasted. So first thing is we wanted to do a test of roasting a whole bird versus parts. We did that and found the whole bird actually had over 4 times more juices and fat coming out onto the vegetables. Why is that true? Well, first of all, we took out the backbone and wings, and they render and throw off a lot of fat, so they're gone. The second thing is when Julie was cutting up the bird, she took care of excess fat and skin and got those out. Those also would have rendered fat. And the third thing is individual parts, there's more air circulation, there's more dehydration, so more of it goes up into the air in the oven and less of it down to the vegetables. So chicken parts on top of vegetables will give you a much crisper, drier set of vegetables, which are a lot more appealing. I used to think that if you needed kitchen shears, you just went out and bought a pair of scissors or used the one from your desk, because if you want to trim pie dough or something like that, they actually work fine. When it comes, however, to poultry and to butterflying and chicken, then you need something a little bit more heavy duty. Now, I've had sort of a love-hate relationship with these over the years. Some of them really are not heavy duty. The other one, I had a pair that sort of came apart for cleaning. Well, it came apart during the butterflying process. So you need to help me out. I want nice, steady, heavy pair of shears that don't fall apart.
We actually experienced some of the same problems in our testing too. But I'll start out by saying that we found 7 different pair of kitchen shears. The price range was about $10 on up to $75. We did a couple of different tests. We trimmed pie dough like you were talking about. We cut twine, we cut parchment paper, we snipped sort of the woody stems of rosemary, and we butterflied chickens. And that was really the test that showed us the most. We really like blades that have serrations in them. Most of them have micro serrations on at least one blade, and those are little indentations that help the blade really take a hold of whatever it is it's cutting, anchors it there, and prevents it from slipping. The second thing that the chicken test really taught us was about the handles. We wanted to have handles that were softer, easier to grip, more cushioned, and a little more spacious. And I want you to try butterflying this chicken with, say, this pair right there.
Okay. I think it's underpowered. I don't like the handles.
Right, the handles were our problem with that too. Why don't you try that second pair that you have there?
More comfortable.
Much better. And that's important when you're doing tough work like this. Also, they're a little less slippery when it gets slick from the chicken, so it's a more secure grip.
I like these.
They all separate so that you can clean them easily. But some of them, when we were cutting, this one
Yeah, I've
if
had
you went
that
more
problem.
than 90 degrees open, they would fall apart accidentally. That's a real problem. The last feature that we really paid attention to was the adjustability of the tension on some of these things between the two blades. If it was too tight, it was sort of halting and difficult to cut with them. If the tension was too loose between the blades, they felt flimsy. And we preferred the models where you could adjust the tension yourself. I'm actually holding the winner. These are the CCS05E11 Classic kitchen shears. They're about $40. Big, wide, non-slip handles that were soft and cushioned and comfortable. Nice, long, powerful, micro-serrated blades. They didn't come apart accidentally mid-testing. You can adjust the tension between the two blades. Really good kitchen shears for $40. We came up with a best buy also. These are the Henkel's International Kitchen Shears Take Apart. Like the winners, very wide, comfortable handles, worked well for a range of testers, serrated blade on one side. The only difference is that you can't adjust the tension between the blades on this one.
So Adam came up with a winner. The CCS05E11 at $40 does an excellent job. It went right through that back of the chicken. But for $15, $25 less, you can buy the Henkel's non-adjustable at $15.
All right, so about 35 minutes in the oven. She's gorgeous. We roasted it until the breast registered 160 to 165, and the thighs and the drumsticks registered 175.
And they're not swimming in juices and
Oh,
fat. either.
yeah. What I'm gonna do is just push the chicken off to the side and sort of toss the veg with some of that good schmaltz. All right, we're ready to serve. Oh, this smells so good. Let me give you the nice, thick, juicy one. Just one? I'm gonna
If
take
you're not looking, I'll take another one.
I'm gonna eat a thigh, I think.
This would be the world's easiest, fastest, best way to do chicken.
I
and veg.
agree.
I mean, the
Yeah.
concept's great.
Oh yeah, you just walk away for half an hour, you come back to a full dinner.
The skin is really crisp. I like that little herb paste.
And the vegetables, everything is cooked perfectly.
So a better way to roast a chicken with vegetables is to start by cutting up a whole bird into 8 pieces. And then the vegetables, we had to select just the right ones. We had carrots, we had Brussels sprouts, we had potatoes, we had shallots. Cut them into the right size pieces. Then we used a little bit of herb and oil or herb and butter on the chicken. Mounted the veg on a baking tray, not a roasting pan, because better evaporation. Put the pieces from the breast meat inside the center, the dark meat around the outside, and pop it into a very hot oven, about 40 minutes, and then you're done. So there you have it from Cook's Country, a one-pan roast chicken and vegetables that is done in under an hour. And perfectly done, I might add. Yeah. Welcome to Bad Jack's tasting session. Why would you actually want to eat soup in a can?
It's convenient, Chris.
I know, but I mean,
Homemade soup does take a fair amount of time and effort. Canned soup, not so much.
it tastes good too. Okay.
So these are all, as you can see, canned tomato soups. So couple things that we learned in our big taste test.
They're mostly sugar?
They're mostly sugar, and many of them don't have any tomatoes.
Great.
The lowest rated brands are made with tomato puree. Tomato puree is basically tomato paste and water and has very cooked, not at all fresh flavor. Top rated brands all start with fresh tomatoes. They include some puree for body, but they need fresh tomatoes. So if you're reading the ingredient label and you don't see fresh tomatoes on the label, it's not going to be very good soup. Some of these are thin and watery. Some of them have nice bodies. Some of them even have a little bit of chunks in them.
So what if I hate all of them? Then what? Do I go to the back of the class? Is the show over or what?
No, we tasted more than a dozen brands, and we only thought 2 were even worth recommending of the dozen. So,
Okay, this was like complete sugar. I mean, this is just awful. It had all, we're too sweet. This one was like, let's dump the herb thing into it, you know? I mean, it has chunks. If it wasn't for all the herbs, this isn't bad. Then I got to this one, and it's kind of insipid, you know? So, I don't know. That's the best adjective I can come up with. I would probably pick this one, but it has too many herbs in it.
you want to start with the one that...
Yeah.
Well, this was the runner-up. It's Imagine vined ripened tomato soup. It is sweet, but it tastes like tomatoes at least.
Okay, what was the...
Well, this is the classic
Yeah.
Campbell's condensed, and honestly, if you closed your eyes, I'm not sure you would really know it was tomatoes. And this was the winner. This is the Progresso hearty tomato. It has chunks of tomato, so it was actual real tomatoes went into making this soup. The studio audience picked that as their favorite. Our tasting panel picked it as their favorite. I'm not sure I would call you picking this as your favorite. Now, I should point out there are two Progresso products. This one here that we liked is hearty tomato, and this one here, tomato basil, almost the same exact label. We hated tomato basil. So if you're going to buy Progresso, you need to go out and buy the one that is labeled hearty tomato.
So the winner, yeah, that's good. The winner was Progresso Hearty Tomato Soup. Now, the more I learn about food history, the more I realize it's like regular history, which means you really don't know anything. I mean, did George Washington really cut down that cherry tree? I doubt it. And the same thing is true of things like chimichangas. There are 3 different explanations, none of which may be true. 2 of them have to do with the restaurants in Arizona, Tucson and Phoenix. One group says, hey, I dropped a stuffed flour tortilla in hot oil. I invented the chimichanga. Another restaurant said, well, they used to be made with corn tortillas, but we invented using the flour tortilla. And someone else says, hey, chimichanga is really sort of an Indian word for broiled monkey, which makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. So one thing we do know about chimichangas is we love them, and we'd like to also make them at home.
Yes, we do.
So 3ry0n is here to figure out how to do this in a reasonable amount of time and come up with something that we're really going to like.
That was one of our main goals, was to make this a one-pot dish. So we're going to start with the rice, which is long grain white rice, and try to figure out a way to speed up the process so that it cooked at the same rate as the chicken. So what we figured out was we're going to add some broth to it and cook it in the microwave and get it kind of a kickstart.
So par cooking.
Par cooking it, yep.
Okay.
And we actually tried using water, we tried using broth, but we wanted a little bit more spice. So we actually found by adding 1 tablespoon of chipotle and adobo into the broth, it added that flavor.
Okay.
Now we're going to take a half a cup of this chipotle broth and add it to our long grain white rice. So it's a half a cup of long grain white rice and a half a cup of chipotle broth. And now we're going to add a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, stir it up, and now we're going to cover it with plastic wrap. So we are going to put this in the microwave and nuke it for about 5 minutes. But before we do that, we need to start our flavor base over here.
Okay.
So I'm going to take 1 tablespoon of oil, and I'm going to heat this up over medium-high heat. Okay, so now we're going to add our onion. And we are going to cook the onion until it's just softened, which is just going to take about 5 minutes. So I'm going to let you watch the onions.
Whoa, big step. I just got promoted.
And I'm going to take the rice and go back to the microwave and microwave that for 5 minutes. Okay. So these have cooked for about 5 minutes and they're just softened. We didn't get any color on them, we're just softening them. We're going to add 2 garlic cloves that we've minced, a teaspoon of chili powder, and we're going to add a half a teaspoon of cumin. We're just going to cook this for about 30 seconds. We're going to add a few more things to the pot.
Okay.
Here's the rice that we microwaved for 5 minutes. See how it's all hydrated with that broth. Now we're going to take the remaining chipotle broth.
Ooh.
And we are using pinto beans, so this is 1 can of pinto beans that we rinsed. We're just going to cook this until it comes up to a boil. Break up that rice. While that comes up to a complete boil, we're going to move over here. We are using boneless, skinless chicken breast. So I'm going to pat the chicken dry. It's just 2 6-ounce chicken breasts and season both sides with salt and pepper. Now we're just going to nestle the chicken right into the whole mixture. We're going to cook this for about 15 minutes. I'm going to reduce the heat down to medium-low, and I'm going to put the lid on it. We're going to cook it until the internal temperature of the chicken is 160 degrees. Okay, so it's been about 15 minutes, and I've flipped the chicken halfway through to make sure that it cooks evenly. Now we're going to make sure that it's 160 degrees on the internal temperature. I'm going to take the chicken out and put it on the cutting board and let it rest for about 10 to 15 minutes. Need you to scrape the pot as I hold it up.
This whole recipe depends on me doing this right?
Mm-hmm. So while the chicken is resting, I'm going to take the pot back to the sink and wash it and add my oil and start heating it up.
Okay.
So we have our oil heating up over here. It's 3 cups of peanut oil. While that's heating up to 325 degrees, we're going to cut the chicken into 1/2-inch pieces. So if we didn't let the chicken rest and if we cut into it, all the juices would come out onto the board and would yield very dry chicken. We're going to add 1 cup of grated cheddar cheese. Now we're going to add 1/3 cup of cilantro. So now we just want to mix this together. Can you smell it? That cilantro adds the finishing touch. We have microwaved 4 10-inch flour tortillas, and we microwave them for just 1 minute. So we're going to do this one at a time. I'm going to take 1/4 of the mixture, and I'm just going to plop this right in the center of the tortilla. If you just shape this like a normal burrito where you would take the sides and put them in and then roll it up, the seams would not hold, the filling would fall out the sides.
Okay.
So we tried a million different things, and our winning method involves glue.
Great.
So we are going to take 1 tablespoon of all-purpose flour, and we're going to add to it 1 tablespoon of water. So this is just a very simple homemade paste.
It's like the stuff we used to eat in first grade.
Stir it till there's no lumps. Now we're just going to take a basting brush and paint the sides.
So I just have to say that looks like a lot of filling, though. But you're about to show me how you're going to make it stick.
It's
right?
going to all
Okay.
stay in there, every ounce of it. So we're going to kind of do a reversal of the normal burrito technique. We're going to fold this over, and we're going to pull up, and we're going to seal. So now that is sealed right there.
Huh.
And to ensure that the ends also stay sealed, we have 1 more area that we want to glue. So I'm just going to put that right there and that right there. And now I'm going to seal it up, just like a gift.
That really sticks.
Look at that.
Yeah. That is way cool.
Isn't that
Yeah.
way cool?
Yeah, that is really cool.
And so that's our first chimichanga. Okay, so now all of our 4 chimichangas are ready to fry. So let's check our oil. So this has been heating for just a few minutes, and we're heating it to 325 degrees. There we are, and we've nailed it. So we're ready to fry the first 2 chimichangas. So I like to use a pair of tongs. I'm going to hold onto this very carefully, and I'm just going to slide it into the oil, seam side down, so that the seam fries first and seals up even more.
Got it.
We're going to have the second one the same way. Always be careful. Okay, so now these are going to cook for about 2 minutes until they're deep golden brown. Then we're going to flip them and cook them for another 2 minutes on the other side.
Okay.
Because we just added 2 solid objects, the temperature of the oil dropped. So I'm going to just make sure that it stays between 300 and 325 degrees. So I'm going to turn up the heat a little bit. So these are ready to be removed from the oil carefully. Beautiful. Are you hungry? Are you ready to eat?
Yeah, I'm
Finally?
I'm definitely.
You want to split one?
Absolutely.
They're pretty big.
They are pretty big.
Yeah.
Boy. You want a little salsa?
Here,
with
I'd
your roll?
love some.
Here we are.
You can smell it.
Now, do you say chonga or changa?
Changa.
Okay. I have a chonga,
Chimmy.
you have a changa.
Yes.
Yeah.
We
It's a
both-
boy-girl
We both
thing.
have a chimmy.
It's very, very crisp. It's very thin on the outside. It's not greasy at all. There's good smoke. There's good heat.
And you get that cilantro and the creamy cheese.
So it turns out the secret to easy homemade chimichanga starts with par cooking the rice using canned pinto beans, 2 boneless, skinless chicken breasts. That all ends up being cooked at the same time, so you end up doing it all in one pot. And then we use flour tortillas, and we made our own glue out of flour and water. Who would have thought? Great trick, little packets. Put them in 325 oil, 2 minutes aside, and really, there you have it from Cook's Country, a great recipe for homemade chimichangas. And you can get this recipe, all the recipes from the season of the show, along with tastings, testings, and you can actually view selected episodes by going to our website at cookscountrytv.com.
All of today's recipes are just a click away. Visit our website anytime for free access to this season's recipes, taste tests, and equipment ratings, or to watch our current season episodes. Log on to cookscountrytv.com.
The complete Cook's Country TV show cookbook includes every recipe, tasting, and testing from all 5 TV seasons. With over 150 recipes, it's our most comprehensive collection of Cook's Country TV recipes ever. The cost is $29.95 and includes this 2 DVD set, a $29.95 value, featuring all 13 episodes from this season at no additional charge. To order, call 1-800-965-7776 or at cookscountrytv.com. Cook's Country from America's Test Kitchen is brought to you by DCS by Fisher & Paykel. America's cooks rely on innovation and culinary precision. DCS by Fisher & Paykel, offering premium indoor and outdoor kitchen appliances. Chef's Catalog, offering kitchen products for home chefs and cooking enthusiasts. chefscatalog.com. And from Valley Fig Growers, imagine the possibilities with California figs.
From our kitchen to yours, In the Kitchen with David on QVC, a proud sponsor of Cooks Country and home cooks everywhere.